Hello there, my friends. So we're going to do a little lesson today, a little lessy-poo, a tutorial on reading with non-representational decks. And these are decks that don't necessarily have immediately recognizable scenes on them, but that aren't pip decks. They may have a Waite-Smith influence, or even something like the Thoth deck, where the symbols are there or not, but that have pips or even trumps that are not pictures of people in the traditional sense, or are abstracted in some way, or non-representational, like non-representational art. Abstract is a word that I think we throw around a lot to mean non-representational, but there is a specific kind of art that's abstracted, and the only reason I'm pointing that out is that if there are artists out there, I don't want them to sort of call me out for using abstracted incorrectly, but I'm choosing non-representational. So I'm going to focus on the Margareta Peterson, which happens to be a particular favorite of mine, but we also, these are examples of decks that have non-representational art in some cases. So this is the Shimmering Veil by Scylla Conway. Here's an example of a sort of representational card, and then we get into sort of something that's more abstracted. This is a combination of things. This may be more non-representational, although there are, as you can see, figures here. So this is one of my favorite death cards ever, by the way. But it's not immediately recognizable as Waite-Smith. Another one that I pulled out just because it was on my table is the Lonely Dreamer, which is a little bit more representational than the other two that I have out, but it's a deck that I really like. It's also art that wasn't designed to be a tarot deck. It's adapted art. But some of it is more abstracted or non-representational, and it's not immediately recognizable in some cases as Waite-Smith for folks. So, again, this is a bit more traditional, a word I detest more and more, but it is in many cases more abstracted or non-representational. Now, in many ways, what I'm going to talk about can be applied to reading any deck. And I guess one of the things as a teacher that I want for my students, both on my channel and folks who take my class, is to be able to read any deck, because I think it's eminently possible. But one of the things about modern learning, at least in my experience, is that the focus on the Waite-Smith deck leaves people feeling limited to that deck, or to decks like it, or maybe not limited, but anything else kind of becomes difficult. Now, what I'm going to say before anything else is that it really, 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 really helps to have a foundation on which your reading stands, your technique. I don't believe there's any one way to do a reading. I don't believe there's any right way to do a reading. I believe there's the way that's right for you, the way that you've discovered that works best for you. But I don't believe in quote-unquote intuitive reading in which there is no technique. A lot of what is considered intuitive reading, as I understand it, simply involves looking at the pictures in Waite-Smith inspired decks and ascribing keywords or feelings to the image, which is why when that image is gone away, people struggle, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but that certainly was my experience. This is just a good opportunity for me to point out that the images in the Waite-Smith are part of your tarot toolkit, which is why when I wrote this book, I used the Waite-Smith deck. I don't particularly like the Waite-Smith deck anymore, although it is the thing that I learned on. I started with it as the foundation of this book because it is the foundation for many, many people. But the whole point of this book is to use that deck and add to it different techniques, things, tools in your toolkit that can be applied to any deck. And so if you're reading with a non-representational deck, you can use the techniques in this book to help you read. If you're working with a pip deck, you can do this, because the images that you remember are part of your toolkit, for better or worse, and you may choose to use them or not. But the art on the card is always a tool for you as well. So I guess this is just a sort of clumsy and awkward way of saying, look, have a foundation that goes beyond the pictures on the Waite-Smith deck. For me, it is numerology and elemental. That is the core foundation of how I read, regardless of what system or deck I'm working with. Some people, it's astrology. I am really increasingly convinced that Tarot and Kabbalah have a lot to... Tarot as a institution historically has a lot to apologize to for its treatment of Kabbalah, but people use it. So when you're working with a non-representational deck, everything that you have learned about Tarot is there for you. So the images on the Waite-Smith, which may in many cases be abstracted in the artwork, the guidebook, if there is one, your elemental, numerological, astrological, Kabbalistic associations, whatever system you apply, that's part of your toolkit. Your intuition in the moment is part of your toolkit. The question and the person that you're reading for is part of your toolkit. All of these things are available to you. As are the unique images, the unique qualities of the artwork. So I'm going to work with the Margareta Peterson today, which has kind of a nice combo of representational and non-representational artwork in it. Some cards like this, which would be, this is 14, this would be Temperance, it's called the Mediatrix in this English deck. Or Strength, you can kind of see representations that somewhat match figures and people. Here in the Six of Coins, very non-traditional, by which, of course, is taken to mean non-Waite-Smith, but Waite-Smith isn't a tradition. It's just a deck that happens to exist and became very popular. This is representational to a sense that we can see hands and feet, but it does not represent what is traditionally depicted in the Six of Wands, in the Waite-Smith ilk, idiom, whatever. And the deck can be very, very abstracted or non-representational here in the Four of Cups, here the Ace of Coins, the Four of Feathers. This does not look like a Four of Swords most people are used to working with, but there is sort of a figure here. There's mountains, and what's cool about this deck actually is the closer you look at it, the more you realize it is actually very Waite-Smith in a lot of ways. But what I want to do is just sort of take you through just some things that you can do as a reader that are not difficult, that can help you stretch and read with these kinds of decks. So I'm not going to worry about a question right now. I'm not even going to worry about an answer right now. What I'm going to worry about are techniques. So I'm going to shuffle this deck and draw 3 cards, and we might get some representation. We might get something abstracted or non-representational. And I'm just going to sort of take you through kind of my inner monologue as I would work through the cards. And this is a deck that I work with, sometimes, and sometimes I'll put it away on the shelf for a while, and not look at it for ages. This is a nice little spread because it is fairly non-representational. So let's zoom in. Now, you're never going to be able to see, one of the things about this deck is that it is something far different in person than it is on video, but we will work with that. So I have a technique that I have built for myself. I have a foundation that I have built myself that includes element and number. So we've got the 7 of Coins, we've got the 9 of Flames, and we've got the Father of Coins. Father would be the king in this case if you assign the card that way. I have a particular method of reading with the quartz, which I teach and have videos about. So I have the qualities of the king and the qualities of coins, which the qualities of coins indicate the qualities of the king of coins. So that's the element and the element. Yeah, that's the quality I'm going for. All right, so like first thing I'm going to do whenever I read is like what leaps out at me, and the first thing that leaps out at me is all this red. Boom, 9 of flames. But I also have 2 coins cards. I have the 7 of coins and I have the Father of coins. So I know just in a spread of 3 with no question asked, no theme or anything, that I have a dominant suit, and I can take that to tell me that this is a coins themed reading because it is taking on the dominant nature of the reading. So that's going to mean, in my case, that it's going to deal with work, family, or money, most likely. Other things that it could imply are being grounded, or the earth in general. So the idea of earth, which could mean travel, etc. I don't know yet. But I'm just sort of getting a sense, and that's really how I kind of guide. Now, the other thing I'm going to look at next is the numbers. I have the 7, I have the 9, both odd numbers. Okay, so maybe there's something unstable in this spread. Nothing in the image necessarily tells me that, but I do get a sense of instability because I've got odd numbers dominant as well. There's an earthiness to the 7 of coins, which sort of shows this, there's a representation in the sense of a flower growing. There's this sort of cave painting. This is a deck that really rewards, experiencing, so to speak. But there's a growth quality to this. The explosiveness of the 9 of flames is really interesting to me, and there's a figure sort of surviving that explosive quality. And there's this beautiful kind of chaotic order about the Father of Coins here. I don't know if you can see it, but there are these frames. It's like almost like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 10 layers of frame around this then kind of figure of the Father, which I'm just pulling out of the frame to look at a little bit. Actually, kind of makes me think of. I was talking about appropriating Kabbalah earlier, but I'm going to go right to Jewish mysticism. It makes me think of golems. It makes me think of a golem. And if I think about the story of the golem, that is an earth figure in which the name of God is written and placed in its mouth, and it comes to life. These are just associations that I'm starting to sort of feel through. That's a very, very metaphysical reading or association of the King of Coins for me and for coins, but it's just something that it made me think of. You know what I mean? And for me, intuition, that's what intuition is like, oh, what does that make? Oh, a golem. That's interesting. Maybe I don't need it. Maybe I do, but we're going to come back to it. One thing that I'm going to look for is flow. And I don't really find flow in this particular reading. There is an explosive, and by flow, I guess I mean, are the cards sort of moving in a direction? The 7 of coins is sort of moving up because this flower is sort of growing, and you might not be able to see it, but there's this sort of texture that sort of sweeps up. The 9 of flames, actually, now that I look at it, has a kind of similar sweep. All of this sort of, in the red, this light orange kind of goes whomp. So everything's kind of moving in these 2 cards to the upper right. Maybe that means something. I don't know. Is there that? There is gentle sort of little bit of texture that leads to the right here. So if there is a flow, it's pushing to the right. So that's the thing I'm kind of exploring. Now, it's very subtle in these cards, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Sometimes flow is much more intense. Sometimes the energy of a card wants to drift. But, you can do directionality in non-representational art, even if you don't have people looking at each other or looking in certain directions, because some cards have flow. The problem, or not the problem, but the thing that I noticed in this case is that the flow in these cards are not really flowing into each other, they're kind of flowing out of the reading. Now that may be interesting for me to note. Maybe whatever energy is given in this reading is actually leaking out of the situation, right? So that's another thing that I start to sort of connect with that might be meaningful, Again, all I'm doing is exploring. All I'm doing is experimenting. I'm just experiencing the cards. And I'm trying to do that without preconceived notion about what any of this means or whether any of it's important or even at this point, the associations that I would traditionally apply to or work with in these 3 cards. I'm just trying to experience the cards with innocent eyes, with curious eyes, kind of like the page. And in many ways, being a tarot reader is looking at the cards every time like the pages. you know? And you might even sort of take that as a structure for yourself. First, let me look at this with the Page of Cups eyes. How do I feel? Ooh, I feel very passionate, but I feel this passion surrounded by these very earthy tones. Now I'm going to look at them through the eyes of the Page of Swords. So what do I know about these cards? I know I have a 7, I have a 9, I have a King. I know that these are associations that I have for 7, which include introspection, luck, turning inward. I have associations for the 9, which is labor, fast growth, which is 3 times 3. For the King, I have leadership and entitlement and maybe belligerence, right? Militariness. So that's the Page of Swords eyes. The Page of Wands eyes, like, what excites me? I am excited by this. You know, I'm excited by the myth of the Golem. That's a story that I've always found really cool. You know, so that's the Page of Wands eyes. The Page of Pentacles eyes. Well, I've got Pentacles energy, very earthy. I'm drawn by the earthy qualities of this. What practically am I seeing is a lack of stability in these odd numbers. You know, so you know, you might choose to read non-representational decks, or any reading really, by using the 4 pages as your guides, you know, with the curiosity of each page. So, you know, I really feel like every reading is an experiment, regardless of the deck that you're working with. The main thing is to kind of forget everything you've ever been told, everything you've ever read, everything you've ever thought, every interpretation you've ever encountered, and just see the cards and experience them and see what talks to you. Now I can start remembering what I know about the cards, you know, after I've got this experience. Things have already started, before I even get there, things have already started to form for me. There is a explosive energy that is very contextualized, contained by Earth. 9's very unstable, very exhausting, too much, you know. There's a too much quality to 9 sometimes. The association of Wands to fire signs, I'm sort of, as a Leo, I'm sort of going to like the too muchness of a Leo. But they're very grounded by Earth. So something explosive is being contained. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. I don't know too much yet, but I know that just looking at this, I know that that's a quality. The energy leaking out of this reading to me is interesting. It's very subtle leaking, which makes me think that it's like radon gas, or something maybe toxic that you can't see, or contact high. You know what I mean? So all of these qualities start to like teach me the reading, teach me the context, teach me the meaning of the cards. As I said, 7s are very introspective. There's an inward turning. They're also very lucky. So I could see the 7 of coins as representing sort of considering what is important to me in life, for example. That's, you know, that to me is not, you know, just in my body, my intuition, my sense of like spark when I read is not lighting up with that particular association. So maybe I think about the 7 of Wands that I'm most familiar with, which is the 7 of Coins rather, which is the Waitsmith with the dude looking at the shrub. That's interesting. You know, that's a card that suggests kind of reaping what you sow. That's not really lighting up for me either, but I'm not done yet. The 9 of Flames. This is the core of the spread for me because it is the most arresting visually. There is a figure here. They seem to be radiating the flames. If I think about the Waite Smith image, the 9 of Wands has this defensive quality. This is more explosive than that. 9s are effortful. You know, they're like trying to get the rock up the hill. This doesn't feel tired, though, necessarily. It feels like it wants to break free. Like it wants to sort of crack open. It's like being contained. And the quality of the earth containing it, I come back to this sort of trapped feeling. The Father of Coins is the kind of epitome of earthiness. And it makes me think of like a really conservative dad in this case. Now, I generally don't think of gender, but the card is called the Father of Coins. So I'm not necessarily interested in fatherhood per se, but the stereotype of the conservative dad is something that creeps into me. And the influence, the power of the king, the power, the dominance of that. Tied to the Seven of Coins. I see someone contained by, constricted by someone else's values. Because my seven association, Seven of Coins, is sort of thinking about what's important in life. This is being contained by the Father of Coins' sense of what's important in life. But this wants to get out of that. Wants to break free from it. You know, so now it's going to depend on why I'm reading. You know what I mean? I don't have a question. This is a general reading. So now I'm going to ask the person I'm reading for, if I'm reading for someone else, like this is the thing. Like, what wants to break out? Are you in a traditional family situation you need to get out of? Are you in a traditional work situation you need to get out of? Are you in a financial situation that's really constricting you? Something wants to explode. What is it? You know what I mean? But like, now I have a context for the spread. The earth is constricting the fire in a way that is so intense, it's actually leaking. You know, toxic fumes are leaking out of this. If something doesn't give, it's going to explode bad. You know what I mean? The earth is going to shatter. Whereas if we are practical about it and open up, maybe we can get out of the situation. So that's just kind of a really quick example. Let's look at three others. You know what I mean? I'm going to use this deck again because I like it and it's in front of me. Just going to quickly shuffle again. But you can see, like, this in a way is the core of your tarot toolkit, which is like you kind of go through all the tools that you have and you listen to the ones that seem to want to work contextually, even without the context of a question or a theme. The moon. This is a fairly traditional quote-unquote moon. The Mother of Coins is very similar to the Father of Coins here. But the artwork has something that feels connected much more to these tree branches make me think of the horns of an elk, for example. The sort of heart of the image here looks very much like indigenous paintings that I've seen. Color scheme is the same, the frames are the same, there's a very traditional quality. The moon is very traditional. The magician is kind of non-representational in its way. I happen to know that this is a painted saddle because I read the guidebook. There's a piece of context for myself. Now, what are the contexts that I have? How do I experience this reading with forgetting everything I know about it? Everything I know about tarot. The moon is in the middle. The moon is drawing me this time. Moons draw. I mean, that is the nature of the moon. It pulls. It pulls the earth. We are all water. The moon pulls water. We are pulled by the moon. I have two trump cards. I've got the moon and magic. I have the context that in this deck, it's not the magician, it's magic. Maybe that matters. Maybe it doesn't. Very, very out of context, or very, very maybe out of joint. One of these things is not like the other kind of way of thinking is the Mother of Coins, the Queen of Coins. So this kind of doesn't want to fit with these two, because this is a minor card, but also there's something much more practical, much more grounded than the moon and magic. These are much more ephemeral concepts. Not a lot of flow in this spread either. There's a lot of flow to magic, which would make sense. It is sort of flowing out of the reading. That is something I've noticed about this deck, is that the artist seems to love a sweep up to the right. Now, that just comes from working with this deck a lot. A very traditional moon in a lot of ways, but there's a visual rhyme for me in this sort of mask-like face and a mask-like face here, which unites these two again. Because this is a mask-like quality. This is kind of a moonish face. This is a moonish shape. The moon here has obviously the moon. This is a crescent moon. This is I can't remember the phases of the moon, but you know what kind of moon it is. So there's like a moonish face here. I'm not even thinking necessarily about the meanings of the cards yet. The Mother of Coins there's a sadness. Let me just sort of see if I can make this visible for you. This is sort of a sad quality, a melancholy to this Mother of Coins. Looking sort of straight out, but in the middle, what we would call sort of in art, the middle distance. You know what I mean? They're looking outward. But there's this quality of melancholy. And the squares around it keep it very contained. And suddenly I'm seeing a Mother of Coins who seems to be of the earth, who seems to be very earth, that is the earth, but who seems so disconnected from the moon and magic, you know, the deeper part of the earth, the magical part of the earth. So the practicality of coins, of money, of capitalism has kind of taken over and boxed this person who should be connected to the earth into an idea of the earth that is much more pragmatic, much more capitalist, much more contained again than they really want to be. They're sort of they're disconnected from magic. They're disconnected from the moon, from illusion, from fantasy, from attraction, from the unknown. You know what I mean? And so maybe this, you know, so again, like I haven't even gone too far with my traditional meanings until I did, you know, until I suddenly, without even thinking about it, started talking about how I read the moon. I haven't talked about how I read the magician, which tends to be a little bit more negative, a little bit about illusion in a bad way, con artist-y kind of trickery. But here, the moon and magic together are, again, sort of the core of something deep, and that this Mother of Coins needs to reconnect to. So what am I saying? What am I doing? Like, I'm reading the same way I would read any other deck. It's just that in this case, this deck is not all this. You know, this deck is not, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of decks in front of me right now. You know, it's not, I'm not going to get a picture of a person walking with a horse and wands around. You know what I mean? And so I have to read the images differently, but I can read them. Let's fuck it. You know, it's already a long video. Let's do one. Let's look at Scylla's deck, which I really love. And just because my friend was asking me about it today. So I'm going to draw 3 more. Completely different art style. Again, what one might call non-representational, although this is, I would say, I think, very grounded in Wade Smith. One of the reasons why I love this deck is that it is a bit more mysterious. I like to use this deck when I don't want people to have an immediate emotional reaction. And so I will use this a lot for relationship readings. Which makes me laugh because when I told Scylla that, she said, "Oh, I never do relationship readings." And that made me laugh, but we're all different. 7 of coins, 10 of coins. We've got all coins here. And this is the devil. That's 15. The one thing I'll say, I love this deck. I do wish the titles were printed on it because I sometimes have to remember what the symbols mean. This deck has symbols in the corner representing what they are, but it's a minor quibble for a deck that I really love. This reading has flow. Everything is being sucked into this 10 of coins. Well, actually, that's a lie. Well, maybe it's not. This card definitely being sucked into it. The sweep of the sky is also kind of being sucked into it, but the ground here is not. The energy moving into what looks like this tunnel, if you can see it, is all bones and skeletons and remains to me. The devil is sort of peering into that. And we have this bright, beautiful 7s, very earthy. There's this somewhat human figure sort of in repose. But the sky is sort of sweeping towards that tunnel. The sun, the mountains. I'm experiencing how dominant this card is the most active card. And it is sucking the devil into it. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not there yet. 7, 10, devil. Sevens are odd. As I have said many times, sevens can be lucky. Sevens can represent introspection and turning inward. Tens often completion, end of a cycle, end of something. They also can be connected really easily to aces because 1 plus 0 is 1, 1's the ace, so it's both the end and the beginning of a cycle. The devil, for me, as a reader, is very non-traditional. It has to do with kind of our core selves, our inner sort of pre-socialized selves, etc. So I start to think about our traditional meanings. Again, returning to the 7 of coins. In this deck, I'm thinking about the 7 of coins or pentacles in Wade Smith with the bush and the dude. 10 of Pentacles is much different in Wade Smith. It's a family. The old man sort of, I always think of Rachel Pollack saying, oh, that's Odysseus. So very, very different 10. Not Wade Smith at all. And then the devil. The devil, to me, is a very sexy card. I say that a lot. There's a I don't know. This is a fairly traditional devil in a lot of ways, but I get a movement towards darkness. But the draw. This is the thing that I'm focusing on. So I'm thinking about the element now. Coins, earth, and earth. We've got a lot of earth in these spreads today, which is interesting. Maybe I need to ground myself. So I'm sorry, I've just actually started reading as though I were reading for a client, and I get very quiet when I do that. Where was I? Lost my spot. 10 of Pentacles would be the end of a cycle, end of something pentacly, end of a job, end of a family, which sounds kind of grim, running out of money, or having a lot of something. What I get, just to be totally honest, is a money pit. Just the way things are being sucked into this hole. And so I feel like someone invested in something in the 7. Thinking about that sort of traditional Wade Smith. I hate that I keep calling it traditional. Stop at me. The Wade Smith is not traditional. It is just the one that is most well known in the United States. The investor quality, that sort of bush with the money on it that we see in Wade Smith being sucked into this hole. The devil is giving me a little bit of nefariousness in this particular situation. I am going towards a very kind of common association of the devil with being tied to something, burdened by something, locked into something. So this to me makes me think of someone who bought a house that turned out to be a money pit. They put a lot of money into it. They were probably deceived, and now they're stuck, and everything's going into it. But that is very literal. I don't know the context. What if the person I'm reading for says, I don't own a house, I don't have a money pit? Remember that's now a story. That's a metaphor. So the metaphor of having invested in a house that has become a money pit that I can't get out of now becomes a metaphor for any number of things. It could be about a relationship. It could be about a job. It could be about anything else. And so as a reader, my job is to take the metaphor, the story I've just told. This could be the myth of Eurydice, but it's the myth of the money pit. Now I have to make that relevant to whatever the reading is about. But again, the 10 of coins, I've never read it as a money pit before, but a lot of money going into this pit. There you go. So again, here I called a little bit more on Wade Smith imagery than I normally would. My numerology was a little less important. My love of the devil card was a little bit less important. You know what I mean? But we trust our tools. And we talk through, in our mind or out loud, the tools, the different associations, the images, the flow. And so it doesn't matter what deck you're reading with. It doesn't matter if it's a pip deck. Pip decks have flow. You know what I mean? And sometimes they don't. The Wild Unknown, which was kind of my transition away from Wade Smith style decks into pip and non-representational decks, that has flow. You can do that with any deck. It's just taking your foundational skills, your technique, and then adding in technique of experiencing an art style that's different. It's like going to a museum, you know what I mean? And I use this example in your tarot toolkit too, which I'm just going to plug one more time, because you should buy it. It's good. I'm proud of it. when you go to a museum and you see a Rothko up on the wall, you don't say, this means X. These reds are passionate. You just experience the artwork. And I use Rothko as an example because his artwork looks so simple. It's just big squares. But they're so evocative to me. And I don't know what they mean. But they just... And I've actually never seen a Rothko in person. So even just photos of Rothko's art make me go, oh, that hits somehow. You know what I mean? But you don't go to a museum and say, this Chagall means this. You just experience the Chagall. You know what I mean? P.S. I would love a Chagall tarot deck. I wish that would happen. Anyway, point is, no matter what system you're reading with, lay out the cards and experience it like you're in a museum before you start telling the cards what they mean. Let them tell you what they mean first. By just listening to them. And by listening to them, I mean, oh, look at the flow, look at this, oh, look at this, oh, how about that? Oh, this makes me think of golems. You know what I mean? That's the technique. So it doesn't matter what deck you're working with. It can be a non-representational deck, like this gorgeous Margareta Peterson, like the gorgeous Shimmering Veil, any number of others. You know, it's just using your technique and enhancing it with different techniques. All of these things then reside in your toolkit. And maybe one day you'll remember the flow of the Father of Coins in the Margareta Peterson in a reading where you're reading with the, I don't know, the Cats with Tits deck. I don't know. I mean, there's so many decks out there now. Maybe that's not the best example, but whatever. Good thing I don't monetize my channel. You know, and then the King of Coins, the King of Pentacles, and the Cats with Tits deck makes you go, oh, remember the flow of the Margareta Peterson. That's part of your toolkit too. I do not want a Cats with Tits deck, incidentally. So that's that. I hope that was amusing. I hope this is helpful. As always, be good. Talk soon. Take care. And what are your techniques for reading non-representational decks? Leave them in the comments. Take care.